the King's speech tomorrow, though, let's set our minds towards that for a moment, because the government will introduce a bill that will award licences annually for oil and gas projects in the North Sea. Ministers say projects would have to meet net zero targets and that the policy would guarantee energy security. You may have heard Claire Coutinho, the Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero, on the Today programme earlier on Radio 4, speaking about this and why it was important. Environmental groups are opposed to the policy. Today, a group of mothers under the umbrella of Just Stop Oil are planning to, quote, slow march in London to demand an end to new oil and gas licences and to call for a secure, livable future for their children, as they put it. Around 100 people were arrested in connection with Just Stop Oil protests in London last week alone, over 50 charged. The group's tactics around the country, from blocking roads to halting theatre productions, are controversial. Two of those mothers protesting today have just walked into the Woman's Hour studio, Gill Tavener and Anna Oliver. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Jill, if I could start with you, why come together, and why come together as mothers?
I think what's driven us to come together as mothers is love and desperation, to be honest. And we see the sort of everything's going wrong. Our job as parents and as mothers, and as you'll understand yourself, we try to keep our children safe, and we do everything we can to teach them to cross the road safely. But what's happening is their future, the world in which they're going to live, is being controlled by decisions made based on, to us, greed and profit. And we just need to bring back that decisions need to be based on love and securing our children. So what we're trying to do is, Just Stop Oil say, oil versus people, people versus oil. But to me, it's sort of greed versus love. And the main sort of discourse is all about profit and more oil. And it's really hard for the voice of love, and maternal love in particular, to break through the discourse. And so we're having to, it is desperate because we don't know what else to do, to get ourselves out onto the street in order for our children's voices and our voices and our calls for a livable future for our children to be heard. And it seems to be the only way to challenge the dominant discourse and the dominant way we're going, which feels the wrong way.
Anna, for you, why do this?
I've reached a point where my terror for my children's future is sort of, I feel it on a very visceral level, and I feel that I can't sit back and passively watch the kind of broken politics around this issue. I feel like we're kind of sleepwalking into a catastrophe, which is happening now. And extreme weather is getting more and more common. And over the summer, seeing so many videos and images of floods and forest fires, I found so alarming. And so I went along to a Just Stop Oil welcome meet and felt so relieved to find people that were feeling as anxious as I was about it. So when I heard that there was a Mother's March today, I just felt like that was the obvious thing for me to join in on.
Do you think you'll get arrested?
I think that there's a very high chance of arrest today.
Because I described, I'm not saying where you're doing it, but I described a slow march. So there's no interference with a theatre production or that, but there is stopping of traffic, or what would be the reason, Jill, why the police may get involved from your perspective?
From what I understand, slow marching itself isn't illegal, which is really why we changed we Just Stop Oil changed the tactic to that. However, this new Section 7 that the government used last week, or the police used last week, says that any major disturbance of one of the main thoroughfares, I'm using the wrong words, but basically any A or B road, any interference with those is illegal. So by being
why.
On the road, it's not the slow marching that we're being arrested for, it's for being on the road and interfering.
But you will be stopping traffic by doing this?
Yeah, well, not to a dead stop, we move slowly, and, obviously we do move slowly. But there's another part of me, and that's another question,
Are you concerned about being arrested?
Yeah, I've never done it before. It's horrible. I'm a teacher. I'm a good girl. And to find yourself in this absurd situation, really, of having to be on the other side of the law in order to speak out for what
well, there are different ways of speaking out. Some may say it's absurd to slow march.
Yeah. And
they may say not why you're doing it, but your form of protest is not the one that they would do.
I think so. There are so many parts to a possible answer. One is we have tried a lot of other things. Each of us as individuals, it's been a long time. I haven't suddenly said, let's do this, I'm going to get arrested. I've done cycle rides with XR. I've written letters. I've signed petitions.
XR, Extinction Rebellion.
Extinction Rebellion, and nothing's changed. Things have just got worse. And I've done this over 20 years. I wrote a book about climate change with a climate change scientist, and nothing's changed. So we've had 20 years of this getting worse. So if there is an easier way and a better way, I would love to know, because that's what I'd prefer to do than this. This is horrible, having to do this.
You've got, you say you're doing this as a mother, and I know your children are actually older than
Yes,
Anna's,
yes.
but are your children on board with you doing this? Do they support it? Do they, for instance, support their mother getting a criminal record potentially?
They're proud of me, they're worried about me, and they're embarrassed by me. All those things, as children are. Yeah, they're bright, they're both away at university, they know what the world's looking like, and they're proud that I'm trying to do something, but as well, it brings to the fore all their concerns about it.
So they are in support of what you're doing, not
Yes.
necessarily how you're doing it?
They haven't really, no, they're fine with how I'm doing it.
They are as well.
Yeah.
It's just interesting if you're doing it as a mother to hear
Yeah.
about the person that makes you a mother. Or
Yes,
people
they're very good.
that make you in that position. We have, of course, heard from the government this morning talking about even the experts in this field talk about when we reach net zero, and we hopefully reach net zero, we'll still need oil and gas for part of our energy needs. And so, Anna, when Gill was talking there about love and how to think about this, love would also be a warm home.
Yes, but they're talking about reaching net zero in 2050, which is far too late. And we know that we've got a narrowing window of time in which we can try and stall things before we lose absolutely everything that we love.
But why a slow march? Why does that achieve what you want? That's what I'm always interested in, why people have chosen the particular protests they choose.
I think it's disruptive on a fairly small level. If you're looking at disruption that's caused by traffic or roadworks, the level of disruption is very, very small. But we do know from previous protest history that disruption leads to discussion, and discussion leads to change.
But the people who need to be listening are this particular party, this particular government. What evidence do you have, I say to either of you, that is what will ensure that these particular politicians from this particular political party will listen?
I think we're not doing it because we know it'll work. We're doing it because there's a chance it'll work, and because it feels the right thing to do whatever we can. If we weren't doing this slow march, we wouldn't be here having this discussion. And I do wish there were ways. It's absurd that we're having to do this and risk arrest in order to argue that we need a livable future, and that licensing new oil and gas is a sign of how broken the system is, because
it's a renewal each year, and there's a check there the government say about making sure that the net zero targets are reached within that.
Yeah, I think
and
if we
about our energy security, and in light of the war in Ukraine, that's more important than ever.
Yeah, I'm not a politician.
No. I'm just presenting. When
yeah,
you're
we have
talking
thought it
about
through
this.
a lot, and energy security is important. I think it's something of a red herring, and the investment that's going into subsidising oil and gas development, rather than that investment could go into renewables, and that would bring about energy security. But even if it was going to secure our energy for the future, it's also going to release more CO2 into the atmosphere, which is going to exacerbate all these problems we see globally. And actually, the climate is reaching, the Earth's systems are reaching several tipping points. We might be kicking this can down the road, and in 2050 we might have no longer have control as humans over the Earth's systems. They will move beyond our control.
Is it? I'm also just thinking of those who aren't mums who might be listening, thinking, I also care about
Yes,
the future.
of course. Yeah.
Why, Anna, do you think it's important to march as mums? Is that, some very cynical might say, well, maybe you're hoping to elicit more sympathy.
I think that we as a collection of people, it feels like a really powerful message, because the government aren't looking after the future of our children. And it's simple. It's that we need to look after our children, and we have that maternal responsibility to look after them and the government aren't doing that because the system is so broken.
Yeah, what do you want to say?
Yeah, there are two things as well. I mean, basically, a few of us came together and we were discussing our concerns about the climate, and we realised that everything we're saying was about our children. And, even those children, some people's children were 40, because we've got some grandmothers with us today. But everything we're saying was about our children and our grandchildren. And we thought, actually, that's a really powerful voice. And it isn't actually one that gets heard very much in this sort of debate. And we thought, well, yeah, obviously we're doing this because we do want to make a difference. And if you have this chance of gathering a collective voice to fight for a future, because at the moment it doesn't look very bright for any of our children. And added to that, I think you might know as a mother, you sometimes think, what will I say in the future when my children say, Mum, what did you do when you knew? And I want to be able to look them in the eye and say, I tried. And it might be that things get better, and I want to say, I was a part of that. And if things don't get better, I want to say, I really, really tried.
No, I just think there's something striking about, the idea that I know you're not saying this, but it could be seen as that only mothers care about the future because they've got children. That in itself, some women will find reductive.
I suppose any message you give that could be argued about, I know the dads did a small march last time. And
Well, no, but that you have to even have an offspring to think like that.
But we wouldn't argue that case
We're also here because we're part of Just Stop Oil, and anybody that cares about this issue can come to a welcome meeting and get that information from...
Just because, we're talking at the time of a cost of living crisis and also what people, are thinking about the public purse. I was looking back at how much it costs the Metropolitan Police to come across, if I could put, or get across the Just Stop Oil umbrella, because there are lots of marches. Over a 13-week period, it cost the Met Police more than £7 million in the summer. Do you have any concern or guilt over that?
I just wonder how much it costs to clear up flooding. In the last week, we've seen people's homes flooded as a result of Storm Ciarán, and, extreme weather events are going to be very, very costly.
And the investment needed by the government to make sure those areas are, I suppose, in that area. We could continue. There are many questions.
It would be great.
You're going to slow march now, and I suppose it's quite a strange thing, as you do, certainly in your case, Anna, have younger children. You might not be going straight home. Depending on what happens with the police.
No.
How do you feel about that as you go off? Just a final thought.
I'm pretty scared. It's the first time that that I will be taking action today. But I don't feel like I have a choice. I feel like I have to be here to fight for my children's future.
Well, that's very clear. There's a grandmother who's just texted in saying how much she supports you.
Oh, thank you.
And
Thank you.
there you go. There'll be other messages, I'm sure,
I'm sure,
on that.
yes.
But there'll also be other messages.
Absolutely.
We do like hearing from our listeners. Thank you very much for coming to Woman's Hour today.
Thank you. Thanks
Gill
very much.
Tavener there and Anna Oliver.